I want to thank you so much for joining us today and welcome you into Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the financial advisors, and the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can go online to the website, welcomehomefp.com, find out more about Ralph, Tim, the entire team. Also, reach out, set up a time to come into the office, one of 3 offices in the Richmond area, and come in and have a conversation and start building that retirement roadmap. Again, welcomehomefp.com. Or if you prefer, you can give a call, 804-635-3550. Don't worry, not going to put you on the air right now. Just to get on the calendar for the week or the weeks ahead, whatever is most convenient for you. Again, 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined by the father-son team. As always, Ralph, Tim, it's good to see you guys again. How are you today?
Fine. Good seeing you, Ken.
We're doing pretty good on one of the best weeks in the world, the old Masters week. So
that's right. Yeah.
Not too bad.
I think we're allowed to say it. I'm not going to jinx it, but I see you're wearing your Masters green. It is a busy time of year. There in Augusta, it's a busy time of year around because it is tax season. April is also something called Financial Literacy Month. There's an ER doctor named Bill Yount who co-hosts a podcast, but he tells Morningstar that his own retirement wake-up didn't come until much later in life.
So there was an age generational wake-up call where I turned 50 and I was like, wait a minute, nobody's coming to save me. I've got to take care of myself. Retirement is 10, 15 years away, and I don't even know what a net worth is. I don't know what our budget is. We don't have one. So all of a sudden, I was dealing with career burnout at the time that I found out that we were nowhere near where we needed to be with our money in order to exit a career that had become, in some ways, toxic for me.
So some people, when they set out in the working world, they've got a million things going on, maybe buying their first house, starting a family, getting married. Maybe they're not necessarily thinking about retirement in their 20s and 30s. So if somebody is starting that planning process later than expected, what are your thoughts on catching up realistically, without chasing risky fixes or miracle solutions?
Well, and I agree. I mean, you should avoid risky shortcuts, but I think Dad will tell you the same thing, that this is something that we see quite a bit. And people think, hey, we've got time. And the next thing you know, you're staring at the finish line in front of you. You're like, oh, what the hell am I supposed to do, right? So I think, if somebody is starting late, and what we normally see too is, if there's a family involved, maybe one of the spouses will stay home and make sure that they raise their kids the way that they want, and then they enter into the working world. There's a lot of things with that. But I think the key is to stay realistic, because don't try to chase that shortcut, and next thing you know, you're burning bridges. So focus on what you can control, right? Are you maximizing your catch-up contributions? There's a lot of things that are out there that people don't necessarily understand or not necessarily know about, because it's not often talked about quite so much, right? You really got to figure out what your goal is, when that time's going to come, what are things going to look like? But I think it's paramount to know what you're going to need for retirement, right? Without knowing what we need, it's very difficult to plan for that. So if you're varying between another 10 years or 20 years, well, that's an additional 10-year period that you might be able to do some other things to it. But, there's milestones. If you're 50 plus, you can, contribute more than what somebody 49 or less can contribute to. So there's a lot of things out there. And I think one of the worst things that people do is just kick the can down the road. I guess that's part of this whole conversation. And, eventually you're going to get to that point where you're no longer going to want to work, right? I should say at least most people get there. So I think, there's a lot of things that you've got to focus in on, but you've got to make sure that you make those right financial moves. And how do you know what those moves look like? So I think, the shortcuts we see quite a bit end up getting in the way, and people are trying to double their money overnight. Well, good luck, because potentially you could double your money overnight, but then you wake up the following morning and everything that you had was gone. So those are shortcuts we want to avoid for sure.
And I would say, Chris, I'm going to ask you this question. Now, he is an emergency room doctor. So that tells me he must have a lot of education under his belt if he's an MD. Would you agree with that?
Oh, no, absolutely. I know friends who've spent time in med school. Yeah, no, for sure.
So that must tell me that, guess what? We don't get a lot of education, even in college, about financial literacy.
That's true.
And that's the biggest point I tell a lot of people is we weren't trained to do that unless we entered this field and studied for it. Because like you say, if you were a doctor, you probably had 8 to 12 years under your belt of getting an MD degree, but you probably didn't have anything about investments, about retirement accounts, anything like that. So you don't want to beat yourself up too much, and you don't want to. I'm glad that he woke up and said, "Hey,
Right.
I'm getting pretty close. What am I supposed to be doing now?" And I'm sure that he made a few more than just minimum wage during those working years from 25 to 50. But don't beat yourself up. It's never too late to start, but it might be a little bit more difficult to get to the same point. But don't ever stop. Go ahead and get started. Have a plan for your future paycheck. That's the biggest piece of information that you need to do. And the other thing I would say to a lot of people is this: if you don't tell your money where it's going to go, it's going to go somewhere where you don't want it to go. I mean, whether it's going to be from tax man because you've taken too much money out of your RMDs and you didn't think about taxation. But the other thing is, if you happen to get lucky enough to get a pay raise and you don't work for yourself, but you get a pay raise or you get a bonus or anything like that, why should you be spending that? Why not put that towards your retirement account? Mm. So those are just simple things that you can do. And just don't spend money just to spend money. Don't do it because it's a habit. Spend money with a purpose. So if you got allocated 10% of your retirement account, of your payroll going to your retirement account, and you can increase it the next year by 3%, do so. You'll be a whole lot better off.
It's all about being able to enjoy it. That's what retirement really is stepping away from the working world and being able to enjoy the fruits of your labor, the time that you've put in there. Longtime listeners of the show will know my favorite saying, the best time to plant an oak tree 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. The best time to really get serious about your retirement, to start planning for it in your 20s and your 30s, but perhaps you've kicked that can down the road. There's no better time to get started, get serious about it than right now. Just by listening today, you're showing that you're taking it seriously. And be remiss if I did not mention, as fiduciaries, Ralph Short and Tim Short, they're going to, recommend things to you that they believe is going to work in your best interest, tell you the things that you need to hear. They're not going to tell you, if you're 64 and you haven't saved anything yet towards retirement, they're not going to say, oh yeah, 65, it's going to be feasible. There may be work. In that case, there's almost certainly work that needs to be done, but by knowing it, you'll know what those steps are. So if you have delayed in your retirement planning, or if you've been planning this entire time and you just want to see second set of eyes, first set of eyes to make sure that you're on track, pick up the phone, give a call, and schedule a time to come into one of the 3 offices in Richmond. A complimentary conversation, by the way. 804-635-3550 is the phone number, 804-635-3550. You can also go online to the website, welcomehomefp.com. Over on moneywise.com, there's an article that talked about the things that can derail a retirement plan. The usual culprits, you got the markets, taxes, long-term care. But it also mentioned something, Ralph, that you hinted at a second ago, slow leak spending habits, saying that most retirees don't spend their wealth on yachts or luxury watches. Instead, they gradually lose it through the kind of mundane and often overlooked expenses. Have you seen any of your clients fall into this trap? Do you have any examples of how this happens?
Oh yeah, we see it all the time, and like you said, it's not normally for big purchases. It's the small ones, right? It's too many streaming services, right? There's so many things that come into that, but helping family is something that I know Dad will probably touch on here in a little bit. Helping family sometimes is one of the worst mistakes people can make because they feel like they're obligated to it. But eventually, your family is going to have to take care of themselves, right? Mm-hmm. What you don't want to do is derail your retirement because you are paying for babysitting, or you're doing the babysitting, which is costing you X amount of dollars more in utilities, which obviously right now in our state is very difficult conversation to have with where, things are, let's just say that. But I think, what you've got to do is track your reoccurring monthly expenses. And we talk about this a lot, that a lot of people don't necessarily know what they're spending. And if you're not tracking those, right, and let's just say we've got Amazon Prime now, we've got HBO Max, we've got Netflix, we've got YouTube TV, we've got all these things. Well, that can equate to $300 a month. And like most people, they probably only watch one show or two per that platform. So is that something that's necessary? But those are things that are going to add up. Going out to eat too frequently just because we've gotten a little bit lazier in retirement, or there's things that we're doing traveling and we want to make sure that we don't have to spend so much time doing other things. I mean, that's all going to add up to you, right? So that's one of those things that people really need to take a serious look in the mirror and say, okay, hey, look, we need to stop spending $500 on eating out each week or whatever the case may be. But those are things that are going to derail your portfolio. And, you don't want to restrict what you do in retirement. I think most people would say that. So let's be realistic. Let's track what we're doing. And we need to bring awareness to the spending habits to make sure that they stay in line with their overall plan.
And I would say there's a couple of things that a lot of people need to kind of not focus on, but understand it's something you need to look at. I mean, because as we get older, some of us are going to have more medical issues than we did when we were in our 20s. Okay. So those costs are going to go up extremely amount. You may not be spending $5,000 a month on travel, but now you might be spending $5,000 on medical costs, expenses, things like that. What happens if you happen to go and have to go into a nursing home? Because I don't think anybody wants to choose to go into a nursing home. What are those costs going to be like? Most people have no idea how much that would take away from your investment accounts if you had to do it self-funded, okay? And, the smallest mistakes in the world may be small, but it could present a big problem to you. And believe it or not, some people, as we get older, we may have a decline in our mental capacity or understanding, and that might present a problem because you might get taken advantage of. I know we've had clients that would call us and just say, oh, I made a mistake. I gave somebody my account number for my bank account, and they just took $30,000 from me, so I need some money from my retirement account to be put back into it. So you have to be aware those are some things that can go wrong that you didn't plan for. You got to be have a conversation with your kids about things like that could happen, because it doesn't take, you didn't work for 30 to 40 to 50 years to save all this money to do something that destroys everything that you work for just because you weren't aware of certain things. Because, Chris, I know this is probably going to be a shocker to you. Okay. But there are dishonest people out there in this world, and they're always trying to get into your pocket, whether it's an individual or whether it's, some group that's trying to do it, or, even the government's always trying to get in our pocket because they're always increasing their taxes, right? That is true. So those are some things that do get into the way of having that ideal retirement that you've always dreamed of, because if you didn't plan for taxes, you might be for a world of hurt when you start taking out your RMDs.
I believe last week we mentioned the word, and I know it's not a popular word, but the word budget and the importance of, having some sort of idea. A lot of people, perhaps they're living paycheck to paycheck. They've got money automatically coming out for their 401k and insurance and things like that. They know there's enough money there to take care of their expenditures. They don't know how much it is. They don't actually know where it's going. Finding out and then finding ways to possibly reduce that, and also taking into account the things that in the working world you haven't had to worry about, like Medicare and how you could be charged more for Medicare for making too much money. Taxes in retirement, those RMDs you talked about, how those are vastly different. Finding out about them is one thing. Finding ways to minimize that hit and make sure that, you've got income for life coming in, well and good, but income for lifestyle as well. That's part of that retirement roadmap process that the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners puts together for each one of their clients, customized retirement roadmap. And if things veer us off track, like we're going to talk about here in just a second, how do we get back on track? Well, if you've got a plan in place, it's much easier to do that than just, hope. Not a great retirement strategy out there. A better one, picking up the phone, setting up a time to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, 804-635-3550, 804-635-3550, or at welcomehomefp.com. It certainly does feel like the geopolitical conflicts over there, the war in Iran, has been driving the market's mood. But wealth manager Victoria Green tells CNBC that this kind of volatility is only temporary.
We're going to move by headlines. Any bad headline tomorrow or tonight is definitely going to take markets back down because this is completely geopolitically moved right now. Fundamentals don't matter. Technicals don't matter. It's what's the news flow. And right now, we had a normal war-driven sell-off. We went down about 10%. We've gone down about 5 weeks in a row now. Are we catching a bottom?
We can go at great length to devote the rest of the show to talk about the sensationalism that the media brings to the table. But when geopolitical headlines do dominate the news cycle, what's the biggest mistake that you see investors, especially those, in retirement or approaching retirement, make?
Well, I think the biggest mistake that we see is people reacting emotionally to headlines, right? And nowadays, so many things are politically done and people either freak out or they're all in or whatever. Well, when the markets get volatile, especially with the political news, let's call it, investors are tempted to make quick decisions that can hurt them long term. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because people now, they say, what should I do? Well, we know the old cliche of you buy it low and you sell it high. Well, when things are going down and you're looking to sell, you're selling it lower, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure, for us and our clients, is we want to make sure that they stay disciplined and focus on their plan and not make those crazy moves. And there's so many times that people start freaking out and think that, it's the old, what was that movie? Chicken Little, the sky's falling kind of thing, right? We want to make sure that you avoid panic selling. And that's what a lot of people do right now. But then there are some people that look at it as a positive and, hey, people are running out of the water. Well, it's time for me to jump into it. So you want to stick to a long-term allocation strategy. And that's where, when we build these plans and we start talking to folks about, what their retirement will look like, everything that we do is for long-term. We don't want to say, hey, let's just sit it here for 30 days and let's figure it out as we go. That's not the right strategy. But nowadays, obviously the conflict in Iran has really kind of screwed the market up a little bit. But we don't know when it's going to end, right? It could end this week, could end next week, could end 10 years from now. We have no idea. But you want to make sure that whatever your plan looks like is going to be flexible. How many times have we said that, right? There's going to be things that pop up. If we knew the conflict was going to happen, we probably would have made some short-term decisions, but obviously none of us knew that was happening. So, there's a lot to do with that. But I think really the biggest piece of advice is ignoring the noise, right? You want to make sure that you are still aligned properly, but you don't want to just have a mass sell-off because you're uncomfortable or concerned or whatever adjective you want to use there.
And I would say the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody is no knee-jerk reaction. Think through it. Use some common sense. Nobody expected this to happen, but you can sit there even on financial channels. If you'll have one person say that we're going into a recession, how many times have we seen that over the past few months about here's a recession, or we're going to be in this and we're going to be doing this. Well, the next channel you turn to, by the end of the year, it's going to be the highest it's ever been. So you've got to figure out some things for yourself. You might not know all the answers to it, but you kind of have to use some common sense. Is this going to be volatile with the political things that we have to deal with? Yeah. But guess what? Did you buy the investment? Was it a sound investment? Or was it just something that somebody told you? If you think it was a sound investment, guess what? It's just not as valuable as you thought it was. You still own the shares. So why are you worried about it? Eventually it will go up. Do you need the money? If you need money to pay your bills, to pay your mortgage, and you've got it in the stock market, you better think again. You need some financial literacy here. So that's kind of why we have second opinions, talk to people about things like this. What do you want your money to do? When do you need it? Those are common sense approach that we use as fiduciaries to do the roadmap for you.
The purpose of your dollars in the working world, it's twofold, obviously to pay for your monthly expenditures, but also to accumulate, to grow. It becomes a bit more complicated in retirement because you still need it to pay for expenditures and you still want it to grow down the road to account for inflation, but also protect yourself from the market volatility. And here's the thing, whether it is geopolitical, whether it is a housing crisis or, a global pandemic, there's always something that is going to put the markets, in a tailspin. And you guys are absolutely right. It is almost the job of the people on the financial channels to be contrarian. Yes, the market's going to see a recession any day now, but the minute it takes a downturn, don't worry, it's going to rally. So I think I could echo what you guys are saying here. Tune out the financial noise. Turn the TV off now and then, unless you're watching Ralph and Tim on TV, go to welcomehomefp.com to see when they are on TV and check that out. But start to put together a plan, whether it is, a second opinion or a first opinion. It can be a lot easier to tune out that noise if you know you've got a plan in place that accounts for volatility. And that is what each retirement roadmap, each individualized, customized retirement roadmap that Ralph Short, Tim Short, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners puts together for their clients, it does factor that in and the other obstacles you will see on the way to, through, and beyond retirement. They can't help you out unless you set up a time to speak with them. Pick up the phone, give a call, 804-635-3550, or going online to the website, welcomehomefp.com. And like I said, check out when they are on TV and be sure to tune in and join them there as well, welcomehomefp.com. Tim, earlier we were talking about streaming services and how a lot of us, myself included, do probably have a lot more of them than we do watch. One that for me, this isn't an endorsement, is worth the price I pay for it, is Apple TV. One of my favorite shows, I think one of your favorite shows as well, the comedy drama show Shrinking. It's now in its third season. In the premiere, Harrison Ford's character begins with treatment for Parkinson's, and he sits down next to somebody in the waiting room who, in real life, is dealing with the disease himself, and that is one Mr. Michael J. Fox.
What are you in for?
Parkinson's. You?
Just a haircut. I deserve more of a laugh than that.
Sorry. Just going through it today.
You look good. Your voice is firm. Makes you sound wise.
Yeah, I am quite wise.
How's your balance?
Not bad. The stupid exercises help.
I fall 3 times a day. I'm thinking of taking up stunt work.
It is a reminder that serious health issues, they don't wait for the right time. If that was the case, they would never really approach. So when people think about retirement, why do healthcare costs often get overlooked, and how do you guys account for these financial shocks when we can't account for when they're going to happen?
Well, it absolutely is one of the things that's most often overlooked. And Chris, I can tell you that I wasn't sure how long this clip was going to go, because if you remember how that scene ends, there was a couple of F-bombs in there.
Oh, no, we edited. Yeah, careful editing.
But it is, it's important. It kind of sheds a little bit of light there because, number one, medical expenses, health issues, they don't discriminate, right? That's going to come after anybody. It doesn't matter what you look like, how much money you got, what things are going to happen. So, healthcare is one of the most overlooked parts of retirement planning. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is, Dad, I know you can attest to this too, is that a lot of people think Medicare is going to cover everything, right? We shoot for age 65 and we feel like things are going to be, cheaper because now if we retire early and there's no healthcare offered through that old employer, you're coming out of pocket pretty good for, your own personal medical insurance. So I think it's important to note that Medicare isn't going to cover everything. Yes, there's other plans out there that you could take a look at, but I think, especially with long-term care, I know Dad will tell you the same thing, is that a lot of people think, hey, that's fine, Medicare is going to take care of that. Well, Medicare doesn't cover a whole lot there. So you need to make sure that the ins and the outs of there, especially when it comes to that long-term or the ongoing support. I know most people, they don't want to go to a facility, right? They would rather receive care in their house. Mm-hmm. Well, you've got to have a plan for that. And that's something that we do, is we help our clients plan for those costs so they're not caught off guard by the expense. And I think, if you don't factor that in, because how many times have we heard how expensive long-term care is? Everybody says it's expensive, right? But if you have to pay for those expenses without having some sort of plan or some sort of insurance, think about how expensive that is there too. Because hopefully we have a long, good quality of life and pass away peacefully, but odds are 7 or 8 people out of 10, they're probably going to need some sort of long-term care service in the future. So it is important. It's not guaranteed, but we are guaranteed to die. So we need to make sure that we do have a plan that addresses long-term care needs, but also cover, gaps that Medicare doesn't particularly pay for. And there's other ways of doing it. It's not just standalone long-term care insurance. There's hybrid policies out there. There's, certain plans that you could dump some money into it and then it'll, let it ride and do its thing. And if we need it, great. And if we don't, beneficiaries get it. So there's a lot to do with that. But I think this is something that people really need to pay attention to, because there's a lot of folks out there that have done well at saving, right? They have $1 million or $2 million or maybe more. But guess what? If you're going to be in one of those facilities or one of those homes and you don't have any plan, that $1 million or $2 million could go away rather quickly. So I think it's very important for people to pay attention to what that would look like.
And I would say to a lot of people, it's, I don't care how good a saver you are. If you have not taken care of yourself, it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive as you get older. So if you can start doing things, and I know this is a financial show, but I would also say to you that you need to take care of yourself. Exercise, eat right, don't overindulge in whatever it is that you overindulge in, because that's going to help you long term, probably not have to go into a nursing home, not have to do this or not have to do that. But it's still, you need a plan to say, hey, if this does happen, what happens if you have a heart attack and you have a stroke and you have to go into a nursing home? What is your plan? Because those things happen. And, I've got buddies that are 40 years old that happen to have a stroke because of an exercise that they were doing incorrectly. And, they had a stroke and they're paralyzed on the right side. So those are all issues that you kind of have to be aware of and have a plan. It's not to scare anybody, but life happens and you just don't know what it's going to be and you just don't know when.
When life happens, also, it is rarely inexpensive. Anyone out there who has, a car and drives, presumably has auto insurance. Now, I don't know this stat for sure, but I venture that not 70 to 80% of all motorists are going to be in an accident where they have to claim on their insurance policy. But that auto insurance is still required. There was talk before about long-term care being required in some states trying to pass legislation. That's not the case yet, but still the same kind of statistics, 70 to 80% chance of needing some form of assistance. And so not addressing it can be one of those major issues that can completely derail a retirement plan, if not just for you, but, for your spouse as well. The good news is because that legislation isn't in place, you don't have to have just that black and white long-term care to use it or lose it policy. There are different ways out there to address the possibility or even probability of needing that long-term care assistance. But exploring those options and finding out how to make sure that you can continue to have your retirement that you envision and, be able to, if that need arises, have a bit of dignity as how you go about doing it. It's part of that planning process, and it's part of that retirement roadmap process that Ralph Short and Tim Short draw for each and every client out there to get started to go ahead and address this possibility or probability. Pick up the phone, set up a time, 804-635-3550. Again, that is a complimentary conversation to come into any of the three locations here in the Richmond area. Just a phone call even, 804-635-3550. You can always find them online at welcomehomefp.com. But we want to thank you, as always, for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Really do appreciate you joining us today. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Gentlemen, hope you have a great week as well. Appreciate the time. As we wrap up, I'm going to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, I think I want to kind of reiterate, if you're getting closer to retirement, you're already there, or you're just not completely confident in your plan, that's exactly what we offer this complimentary roadmap for. There's a lot of folks out there that, kind of have a fairly decent understanding of where they're saving or what they're doing, but they can't put those pieces together. There's a lot of people that do a good job of saving, but, what the roadmap will do is, we'll sit down, we'll map everything out for you, see where you're at currently, see what opportunities are out there, see how we can help you out. Because there's a lot of people that do the right things, but there's also something that's often overlooked. So that's what we want to kind of point out, is take a look at that analysis and see what is out there, whether it's taxes, whether it's, concerned of running out of money, or we just talked about long-term care. What if something like that arises? So that's what we build this roadmap for. And we open this up for the listeners from the radio show every week, but obviously there's only so many hours in the day. So, give us a shout and we would love to sit down and talk to you. Once again, we want to thank everyone for listening and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.